Today we're going to be talking about The Dark Tower, and in our Tube Talk, we're going to be talking about Game of Thrones and Master of None, so stay tuned.
Welcome to The Real Review.
Welcome to The Real Review, sponsored by Parametric and Lazy Ape Studios, where you get some of the latest happenings, real thoughts, and perspectives in the world of film and television. I'm here with Matt, Lobster Hands Hay.
Hey.
Who am I, Matt?
Joel.
Yeah.
Everybody, I am with Joel. Don't let anybody see your shine, Cunningham.
That's the best one. I totally forgot about the shine.
The shine.
Oh my goodness, that's just like that. We're going to be talking about that one today.
Yeah,
folks.
we're going to be talking about the shine, guys. So stay tuned.
In our Dark Tower review.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, mine is also Dark Tower inspired.
Yes, lobsterosities.
Yeah, and this is something that maybe one of our listeners who's read the books could share with us and let us know a little bit about. Supposedly, there's something in the books about a lobster-handed man, lobstrosity.
I don't think he's lobster-handed.
I don't know.
Shout out to Dan Parker for bringing this to our attention.
Yeah, telling us about the lobstrosities.
We'll have to go into that.
Yeah, I was picturing, like I said before, like the 300 guy.
Yeah.
The guy from 300
that
chops
beheads
hands
people.
And he's got like lobster arms. Yeah, so that's what I was picturing. So
Lobster hands.
there he is. Yeah. So welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you here. If this is your first time listening, we want to go ahead and just let you know a little bit about how we run things here on the podcast. Matt's a little bit of a, I don't know what you would call it, fire and ice. How about that? Going with the Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
The got metaphor
kind of emotional and experiential and...
Yeah. Kind of gets into things on a more emotional basis and more of a fan type perspective.
Yeah, what I'm feeling.
Right. And I do get emotional, but I tend to be more the kind of critical, logical, like structural type breakdown guy.
Analytical details.
Yeah. So with that, though, we combine our thoughts, put those together to give you what we believe is a real thought and a real perspective for whatever it is that we're reviewing.
The Real Review.
The Real Review. There it is. All right. So, Matt, why don't you give our listeners some ways to get connected, some ways that they could tell us about this lobstrosity?
Y'all could get connected with us in this social media world on Facebook.com/Real Review Media and Instagram and Twitter @Real Review Media. And we have a website, which we're updating all the time. In fact, we just got some new stuff up there today that we'll talk about probably a little bit later on some point in our world, but the new cable photos. It's awesome. So it's realreviewmedia.com. You can email us, drop us a line over at realreviewmedia@gmail.com. And as usual, it's real spelled REEL. So make it happen.
There it is.
Yep.
That's great. I'm going to issue a photo challenge.
Okay.
Send us a picture of the lobster man.
Oh, yeah. The lobstrosities, from Stephen King's Dark Tower series.
From the Dark Tower series. And you will get, if you want, a sticker for the website.
Yeah.
Yeah, how about that?
I like it.
We've got a bazillion of those
left
over from Comic-Con that didn't arrive until the day I left for Comic-Con.
Yep, so we didn't even actually get to distribute them.
Very unfortunate. But oh well.
Cool.
Anyway, yeah. So with that, though, why don't we get right into talking about Dark Tower?
Yeah, man.
Cool. So this was a film that we both had a chance to see. The director for it was Nicolas Arcel. The synopsis for it is: The Last Gunslinger, Roland. I'm already starting off. Roland Deschain, I can't say Deschain, there you go. Has been locked in an eternal battle with Walter Odem, also known as the Man in Black, determined to prevent him from toppling the Dark Tower, which holds the universe together. With the fate of the worlds at stake, good and evil will collide in the ultimate battle, as only Roland can defend the tower from the Man in Black. It stars primarily Idris Elba, Matthew McConaughey, Matt McConaughey.
All right.
And Tom Taylor. Yeah, all right. Yeah, so those are the big ones. Matt, why don't you give us some thoughts on this? That's an epic description for what, in a lot of ways, turned out to not be very as epic as they're making out
I felt kind of like okay/meh about it.
Okay.
Let's start off with the good.
Yep.
This is what we normally do. We start off on a positive note.
Yep.
So Idris Elba, I like him in everything.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He just brings weight, gravity to whatever he's in. He's awesome. Even in Pacific Rim, he was like the most like weight bearing and serious, like dramatic guy in the film, I felt like.
Yeah.
But he's awesome. And even Matthew McConaughey, to a degree, I think a lot of his problems were more script issues than himself.
Yeah.
But positives, my favorite part about this, one is kind of the runtime, which we'll get to that in a minute. It's only like an hour and 35 minutes long. But two, I think the biggest thing is the action. I thought the action was pretty good. Even some of the stuff that could have been generic CG stuff was executed well to a degree to give you a sense of, especially Roland's character, Idris's character, his kind of like his abilities as a gunslinger, and I like that.
Yeah.
As far as positives, the kid, I thought he did well. Not amazing, but I thought he did well. And that might be it as far as the positives. I don't know what else you got for positives, Joel.
No, I thought similarly. I think the action scenes that were there were good and effective, although a bit predictable. I didn't feel like anything that happened in any of the action scenes was like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. I mean, it's a guy shooting guns, and you can pretty much imagine where that would go. He's going to shoot people, and he's going to shoot things that hit people.
Yeah.
You know, I think the craziest it got was with the bouncing off of different, reflecting it off of different, ricocheting it off of different objects and stuff. And I will say we're going to try and do, so the first little part of this, we're going to do non-spoilery, and then quickly move into kind of the spoilery territory. And we'll let you know we're going to do that if you don't want to get this spoiled. I felt like the acting was decent. Mm-hmm. I didn't think that it blew me away. It was a little flat, I think, a lot of times. I think the production design and not cinematography, but the special effects were good.
Yeah.
There was nothing about it that felt fake or artificial. Everything was like, oh yeah, okay, that fits and that kind of makes sense. And there's the potential there for there to be some really bad CG and special effects, especially when you've got like these creatures that they've created in these other worlds. Or other world, I should say, the mid-earth.
Not Middle Earth.
Not Middle Earth.
Not Frodo's world.
Not Frodo, although they are in one big tower. Never mind. So
could be. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a tie in there somewhere probably. But so I thought the CG was pretty good. I thought the acting was okay. It didn't blow me away. I think both Idris and Matthew can do really good acting jobs given the right content. And this is the first time I personally think I've seen. I know Matthew McConaughey took on an evil role with what was that? The one movie, Crud, where he's the hired killer. He did an amazing job with that. Lucky Joe, was it, or something like that? I don't remember exactly, but it came out I think a year or two ago. It was a really tough role. I mean, it was a really dark. I can actually look it up real quick, but. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It was kind of an indie type
with
action.
the two kids.
No.
Oh, that's Mud.
That's Mud.
Okay,
yeah, you're talking about Mud. I'm talking about something that's kind of
okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking
darker. Let's see here if I can find it. I can track.
It's like a hired contract killer.
It came out around the same time as Mud. Killer Joe.
Okay,
that's what I'm talking about. He played a pretty bad dude in that.
Gotcha.
Some really kind of horrible stuff, and so I think he can play a dark, bad character if he wants to. But I think with this film. So I'm going to move more into the kind of negative stuff because there isn't a whole lot of the positive to talk about. Unless, there's not much more. I think it needed a bit more depth. And this is the dumb thing. I think a lot of times I'm always saying, like, I don't need my bad guys to have reasons necessarily. Like, they can just be bad to be bad. When I say that, though, that doesn't mean that I necessarily want my bad guys to not have depth to them, to not have purpose and reasons and like a theme that kind of and like an internal dialogue that guides them. I want that, but it doesn't mean that has to make sense. It doesn't have to be realistic in a way, because people can just be evil for being evil's sake. Like Hitler didn't have to have, in my mindset, this like, well, he suffered this as a child and then he went through that to be this horrible guy that killed a bunch of people and did awful things. It's like his motivation was there to do that, though, and he had reasons for doing it. I'm not saying they were at all right.
Yeah.
He had motivations for them, and that's kind of what this movie needed with a lot of the characters, and especially with him. The antagonist was such a flat antagonist, the Man in Black. It was like, well, he just wants to destroy the tower. Well, why?
Yeah.
Well, you don't really know why.
It's not given,
He maybe had this kind of weird experience when he was like at some age where he kind of like went into like the hell world, which that line of dialogue was so horrible.
I felt like they're so metaphorical too.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was
well,
an
he's
actual
like,
event.
because the guy's dying and he walks up to, I'm spoiling already here,
Yeah.
but he like walks up to the guy and he's like, oh, you're dying. Well, you want to know what happens next? Nothing happens at all. And then the guy's like, go to hell. And he's like, I've been there. And I'm like, well, you just disproved what you just said. So obviously there's hell.
Yeah.
So okay. So like, and that was, the motivation aspects of the characters, especially with him, Idris' character, like, was literally just revenge.
Yeah.
That's like his whole motivation. The main kid's character was, well, I just want to prove that I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
You know, there was a lack of depth. I wanted to see like more than just one layer deep with these characters.
Yeah. In the Bones, you can see the makings of some pretty cool like mythology that's just not fleshed out.
Right. Even in the world.
Yeah, the Dark Tower, it's there. There's something briefly mentioned. It's there since the beginning of time.
Amusement park stuff. There's things there that exist that you just never get any idea really of what it's about.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest negative for me, other than there was, for such a short movie, and we've talked about this before, for such a short movie, there was a lot of scenes that kind of dragged and were boring.
Yeah, I relate a lot of that as well to pacing issues.
Yeah.
And dialogue issues. Dialogue was really bad to me. I mean, the fact that he would just like walk up to somebody and go hate, and then they just started eating, like anger, stop breathing. Like, that's just so stupid. Like, I didn't even need him to say anything. He could have just like done a hand motion and they're just acting a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like so on the nose with a lot of that stuff.
I didn't mind that for some reason.
It just felt really childish. It felt very wooden and childish, and it like I didn't need half of the dialogue that was there. So that was a big kind of like mark for me. And then, we talked about this, pacing issues and tone issues. I really felt like the whole movie was both too long and too short. There was times where I felt like they were just like needlessly long and elongated moments of like him wandering in the desert or staring at things or seeing visions that like I got it within a second and I could have moved on.
Yeah.
But they just kept it going a little too long. And one or two of those in a whole film's not that bad, but it kept happening over and over and over again. So those moments felt really long, but then the entire film itself felt very short because it felt like I never really got a sense to get into the world, get into the characters and the mindsets. And so the whole thing ended up feeling this weird conglomerate of too long and too short.
Yeah.
Which was very bad for me. Did you have any thoughts with that?
No, I agree. I think this movie's been plagued with a lot of production issues.
Yeah.
Behind camera, in front of camera, behind script pages, behind release date studios, meddling and all kinds of craziness. And I think what we got is just a direct effect of that. I think that's primarily what's going on there. But I honestly, that's the biggest thing for me. And I think the more I think about it and the more I talk about it, it's kind of drifted downwards a little bit for me.
Yeah, same here.
As far as what I want to rate it and what I want to give this thing. And I'd have to probably give it a 71.
Okay.
Just because it was just kind of meh. And I don't feel like I'm going to remember this.
Yeah.
Like give me a week and I probably already forgot about most of everything in the movie.
Yeah, I'm going a little lower.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm doing a 67.
Okay.
So it's like a D plus range, D plus range. I agree with you in the whole menace of it, and it's not going to be a film that I'm excited to see a sequel to if they make one.
No, they're doing a TV series that got greenlit.
Okay.
It's kind of actually all the background of the gunslinger, I guess.
That actually might be a lot more interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of stuff that I wanted.
You can flesh it out.
Yeah.
You can do it right. And it seems like TV series are getting things more right than major motion pictures are.
At this point,
yeah.
It definitely depends upon the network.
Right.
But yeah, I would agree. I mean, if this shows up on like a CW.
No, yeah. I don't think it will be.
Do you know where it got greenlit?
No, it's going to be a streaming service, I think. Like
okay.
Netflix or an Amazon or Hulu. Even.
Netflix could be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting in that sense.
Yeah.
This film really felt like an intro story.
Yeah.
It didn't give you enough to really get into anything. So it's like it's kind of open, like an open book as far as what direction they want to take it in. I mean, the Stephen King series is long running and was very popular. I've heard mixed reactions from fans. Some people saying that they liked it, some people saying it was meh, some people getting really angry.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can't say that I'm sad to hear that they're not necessarily going to continue on with the movie series or excited that they're going to do a TV series, but maybe, at least for the fans, that will offer them a more realistic, real fitting. Maybe the lobster guy will make a cameo.
The lobster guy, yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Just real quick on the spoiler section, we are going to, this is the section I just want to bring up a couple things on the spoilers for this movie. Not that there's a lot.
Yeah, so just, if you're not wanting to get any spoilers or anything like that, just go ahead and slap forward.
I don't know if it's even worth it. But anyway, just
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, courtesy. This is a courtesy.
Yeah.
Matt McConaughey dies.
Yeah, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Matthew McConaughey dies.
Usually when we do spoilers, somebody dies.
Pretty much.
Yeah, the funny thing was that we were joking around with earlier was the shine. They have this thing like if you're a psychic in this world, you have the shine.
Yeah.
And, Matthew McConaughey's character can track you if you use the shine. So don't use the shine, but it makes you more powerful.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's like where the dialogue and everything just felt so silly and kind of on the nose. Like you couldn't think of a better term than shine.
Right.
What? Like, okay, I've got the shine and the shine shines so they can see it. I'm going to let my light shine, guys. And like the description of the tower was like, oh, well, and I know this is in the book, but like give it some depth. Yeah. I mean, give it a little bit, like talk about where the tower comes from.
I shouldn't have to read the book to know what's happening.
Right, but instead they're like, oh, there's a tower and it emits energy and that keeps bad things at bay. It's like, really?
And there's infinite amount of worlds that this tower holds together.
And that's like that. If there was more to it than that, then it would be cool. But I don't necessarily need that much more depth with that description. But that was like the deepest that anything got was there's a tower, it emits powers and energies, and that keeps bad things at bay, like the spider, which was where's the spider coming from? That was the funniest thing. He's like doing the description of the tower, and he just randomly pulls a tarantula out of nowhere. I'm just like, okay, Deus Ex Spider. That was my joke. But so I thought that was really stupid, and just their level of description and dialogue and understanding different elements, and they played out that way with everything. The shine, like, well, what's the shine? Where does it come from? Did people develop this over time? Was it like how is that? How does that work itself out? You know?
There's some other.
Why does this kid have the shine?
There's other bad dialogue too, like, "Oh, you're hurt. I don't have anything to help you." But you should, maybe if you lay down, it'll help you. Maybe go rest.
He's like, that was so funny. He's like, oh man, this is a pretty bad injury. I can't do anything to help you. But you should probably lay down and rest. How do you know that's gonna help?
I know, right?
So just stupid things like that at times. I mean, everything was like set up for exactly the direction that you knew that it was going to go in. Right. I mean, from the very beginning, you knew that. I think the only thing that was slightly just a bit shocking was that they killed Matthew McConaughey at the end. But it wasn't shocking in the sense that I'm like, whoa. But it was more of a, well, I guess they're not going to continue on the series with him. Yeah. That was just the end of his ride in the series. Yeah, I mean, everything felt very flat. Everything felt very boring. I'm trying to think of other spoilery type talk. I thought the weird. I wanted to see Matthew McConaughey more enjoying his badness.
Yeah,
because it felt more of like he was just kind of like on a path. Like it wouldn't have been surprising to me to find out that he's like not the main bad guy, but he's like the underling that's just doing it because some other guy is telling him to do it. But that never panned out, and so it felt like he was really flat because you never got an understanding of why he's trying to destroy the tower to bring in the darkness. He just is because reasons. But I wanted to see him like going around and like he did that one little moment of it with that little girl in the park, and he's like hate, but then that never went anywhere. There was no payoff for any of that. I wanted to see more of most of the bad things that he did outside of like things that he was trying to do to accomplish his goal, like the real nasty type things that he just did because he was upset at people. He did to his own underlings. Which I don't care about.
I kind of like the skin effect, like, and that got kind of dark. There's like this scene where they're in this club and like people are like trying on different like faces and skins and stuff. I was like, oh,
it felt really dark. It felt kind of stupid and manipulative too, though. I mean, like literally, okay, so there's this giant club of like monster creatures that exists just behind like a door.
It reminded me of Blade a little bit. But like at least with Blade, they had like entrances with bodyguards, and you had to like
key code and figure out the secret way of getting like that made sense. These were just like out and about with like a locked door, and it's like don't go in there because bad things.
Monster people face skin people.
Yeah, I'm like, well, you pretty much are just out in the open.
But I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add to that. Do you have any?
There's plenty more that I could talk about. Okay. I mean, as far as like just negative things but I'm not going to spend too much time just railing
C-, D+. Yeah. That's what we got.
Yeah. But. So, I mean, I wouldn't suggest it. I think it's definitely going to be one of those movies you can just, if you want to watch it, wait for Netflix or something like that. All right. Well, with that being the case, we're going to go ahead and move into our Tube Talk conversation then. Just stay tuned, and then we're going to be coming back. We're going to be talking about Game of Thrones and a little bit of a show, a new season of Master of None. All right, welcome back for our Tube Talk conversation time. This is we're going to be talking about some television shows here. And Matt, unfortunately, you have not yet still had a chance to get quite caught up on the Game of Thrones.
Just this one episode. I haven't like done my discovery on it yet. So
gotcha. So we'll talk about Game of Thrones. We're also going to talk about season 2 of a show that I watched the first season of. And then they just started the second one. They just released it on Netflix. I haven't gotten all the way through yet, but it's called Master of None.
Yeah, Aziz
Ansari and Alan Yang.
Yeah.
Are the two guys, the creators for that one. So talk about it briefly, and then, that's good. So let's start off, though, with our Game of Thrones conversation here.
Yeah.
Episode 4 of this current season. So where we last left off.
Break it down. Olenna just got poisoned.
Yes. Okay. So they didn't do anything with that.
Okay.
Which I actually was kind of hoping they would circle back to. I was hoping they would bring some resolution to kind of find out if she's going to die or she's going to survive. Because I keep holding on to the feeling that maybe they since they didn't just kill her, and they didn't show her dying, that maybe they're going to have her come back or something like that, or they're going to walk in the room and she'll have escaped or something like that. I don't know. I know they don't always do that in Game of Thrones. A lot of times they just kill people off screen and it just happens. So didn't do too much there. I actually thought this episode, for the most part, until the end, till the last like 10 minutes or so, was really boring.
Okay.
Last 10 or 15 minutes or so. And then it picked up and it became one of the best battles they've had
really?
on Game of Thrones. Yeah.
Who's fighting?
Ever. So it's Cersei is fighting Jaime Lannister, more or less. Daenerys.
I was like, what?
I was like, wow, yeah, holy cow. Totally screwed that one up there. No, so Daenerys is flying on her dragon, and she leads her army of the Dothraki.
To Highgarden?
To Highgarden.
Okay.
So at the end of the last episode, you have the Queen of Thorns who just passed away, and Jaime Lannister is taking the gold and all their stuff and heading back to King's Landing with his troops.
Right.
And Daenerys is very torn because she's losing all these forces and everything, and she wants to go attack them, but her advisors are saying, well, mostly Tyrion is saying, you can't do it, it's too risky, don't do it. And so she finally, I guess, is in this episode, she's had enough. She has this moment with Jon, if you will, where they kind of go into this cave, and it's quasi-romantic, and I ended up watching, the Q&A that comes at the end of the episode, and in the Q&A, the showrunners are talking about, how this was supposed to be kind of a romantic moment between the two characters, so they're developing that. I know we talked about that in the last episode.
Aunt and nephew.
Yes.
Yeah.
We talked about that in the last episode, and that is kind of weird, but it's Game of Thrones.
Right.
And so they're...
It's like anything goes.
Anything goes, yeah. So, So we'll see if they end up going through with that or what it's going to be. It was like a cute kind of, not cute, but more of you could tell that they were kind of getting intimately close to each other and getting to know each other and discovering things together. And then Daenerys just spoils the mood completely when she's like, well, you have to bow the knee to me. And
again, she does that?
Yeah, because he's like, we can work together, we can make things happen. And then she's like, okay, but you're going to have to bow the knee to me. And he's just staring at her. And you can tell it's well, that's rough.
Yeah.
And then he goes, well, my people aren't going to let me, or they're not going to follow you. They don't know you. And she's like, well, if you bow the knee, then they're going to listen. And there's kind of some truth to that. But at the same time, I feel like her character has really gone down this path where it's kind of gotten very self-centered and self-righteous. And I'm hoping in this coming episode...
There needs to be some give and take.
Yeah, I'm hoping that maybe she realizes that... Because the problem now is that she did win this. I mean, the battle definitely goes in her favor.
Cool.
The Dothraki slay all the Lannister troops. they definitely get. I mean, the King's Landing troops and the dragon destroys pretty much all their stuff. They do get the gold back, so they're able to pay off the bank because that was a big part of this season.
Wait, who does the Lannisters?
The Lannisters. Okay, They get the High Garden gold back to King's
So Jaime
Landing.
escaped then?
Well, so that's kind of the cliffhanger of the episode.
Oh, okay.
It builds up to the big battle, and the funny thing is that it starts the episode, and I was like telling my friend that I was watching this with, I was like, the dragon's gonna fight. Dragon's gonna show up. It's got to show up because the way they were setting it up, and then sure enough, the end of the episode does. So they revisit the same scene of the troops kind of marching along, and so the battle builds, and it's a really epic battle. I mean, it's the dragon's coming through, and he's like, you can really just see the impacts that this dragon is having on, like, he's like burning people and they're turning into ash.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then the Dothraki come in there and they're just breaking through the lines and slaying people, and it builds really nicely, and there's just like all this blood and killing. And then Bronn, who's with Jaime, decides he's going to try, Jaime encourages him to, so he runs over and he uses the big dragon shooter
spear gun thing,
to try and take on the dragon. And part of me, the thing that worked so effectively with the episode is you didn't know really who could die or who could live.
Right. Anything,
because it felt like Jaime could die, it felt like Bronn could die, it felt like one of the dragons could die. Weirdly, in the back of my head, I was like, well, maybe Daenerys would die.
Died?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they would ever do that. Not at this point. Maybe next season, but I don't think they would do it this point.
I think either Snow or Daenerys is going to die before the end of this thing.
Yeah, but like the thing we've seen in the show is that when people get really big-headed, there is always a fall.
Right.
Like when people get really cocky, and she's been acting very cocky, very like big-headed, and very like, well, I'm in charge, and Targaryen, and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
I feel that way. It could just be the showrunners having her character go that way too. I don't know if they're setting it up for something like that, but I would like to think that that's kind of the direction.
Yeah.
But at the end of the episode, so Bronn shoots the dragon with one of the big spears, and it gets injured and it like falls down. And so Daenerys gets off and she's trying to like yank the big spear out of its arm. And as she's doing so, Jaime, and there was a really cool intimate moment in a weird way with Tyrion, because he still cares for Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely doesn't care for
his
Cersei.
brother, yeah.
Right. And he still cares for a lot of the troops and a lot of people because there's people he knows. And so he's watching as the dragon's like destroying all these people. And you can tell that he's kind of torn.
Yeah, conflict.
And there's conflict there because it's like he's watching all these troops just get decimated, and he cares about the people. And so Jaime's charging Cersei with a spear as she's gotten off the dragon. She's trying to get...
You mean Daenerys?
Yeah, Daenerys. Sorry, I keep messing names up. But so he's charging her, and right before he gets to her, the dragon like turns its head, and it's like about to like... I thought it was going to like chomp down on him.
Yeah.
But it's about to shoot fire, and then Bronn jumps up and knocks him off his horse, and they both fall into a lake.
Oh, okay.
And so it ends with them both kind of falling into the lake and kind of sinking down, and then it cuts. And so I don't think they died. I don't think either of them died.
Right.
They might like knock them out for like an episode or so. My assumption is he'll surface on like some other part of the lake, and Cersei maybe will think he's dead and be like, he's dead. I've got to go vengeance and all this other stuff. So, but it was really effective because at any moment I never knew who was going to die.
Right, that's cool.
Most of the rest of the episode, though, I actually thought was kind of boring.
Okay.
It felt very slowly paced. I mean, it really felt like everything was just building to that battle at the end of the episode, and the rest of stuff. There was some kind of sweet, in a sense, back and forth with Arya and Sansa because they never got along well. And
they
Arya,
reunited then.
Yeah, they reunited, cool. And I think Bran was much better in this episode. He was a lot more effective in his role, and it made a lot more sense.
Not weird.
Yeah, he was still kind of weird, but for a reason.
Sure.
And it made sense in an effective way, and he has this really crazy exchange with Littlefinger, and it's a really good back and forth. But the whole thing with Arya and Sansa got way too long, and then him meeting, like Bran meeting with Arya, got way too long, and there was like long takes of conversations between Jon and like Theon, which was in a way interesting because there's been some tension there and some obviously stuff that happened with Sansa that he's upset about.
Right.
But it just felt like everything was really kind of stretching out just to get to the point where they could have that big battle at the end. So the episode itself would have probably been a pretty low-ranking episode if not for that giant epic battle that happened at the end.
What'd you give it?
So I gave this episode right at a 90. So,
okay.
Yeah,
that really amped it up. Then
it really amped it up.
Oh,
I
cool.
would have given it probably close to like a B-, but that fight scene was just so good.
Cool, awesome.
Yeah, so visceral, so fun, and very nice. So
nice.
Cool. So then with that, we'll move on to our discussion of this show, Master of None. Matt, I know you haven't had a chance to watch this either.
Nope.
No?
I saw part of the first episode, but never continued through it. of season
You know
one.
Aziz Ansari, though,
Yeah,
and
yep.
I probably
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec,
Yep.
And that's kind of the big thing that I've known from. I've seen some of his stand-ups as well, and I liked most of his stand-up. I thought it was pretty funny, at least his first one. I don't think I've seen his second.
Okay.
So I approached this show. I didn't start watching the show until I started hearing some of the critical feedback that I was hearing from it, which a lot of people were praising it for what they felt like was a good sense of realism and honesty, and that it wasn't trying to hold back. It was telling the story, a very realistic story of what people would go through in their lives.
Okay.
And I think the first season and the second season so far, as I've seen it, do that.
Okay.
And they do try to keep it pretty honest. And I like that about it. I do love it.
Okay.
One of the aspects that I've had a really hard time, and especially with the first season, it's gotten a little bit better, I think, with the second, is the acting.
Is it over the top or what?
No, it's really bad.
Really?
Yeah, to me.
Oh, okay.
He casts a lot of people, like he casts his real mom and dad in it, and he casts like real family members, and a lot of them cast real family members and parents.
Oh,
people
okay.
that don't really know anything
So
about
there's not a lot
acting.
of tenure there.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of forgiveness with him
Mm-hmm.
on that regard because he's going for something that tries to be very real and honest, and so they give him. I think a lot of reviewers give him the benefit of the doubt in that regard, and he directs a lot of the episodes as well.
Oh, okay.
But that was really hard for me to get past on numerous occasions because everything always felt like, because the dialogue is still written, you can tell the dialogue for these characters a lot of times is written, and it's written funny, but their delivery is so poor and it's so off, and it doesn't feel like it's really who they are.
From the non-tenured actors, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
because the thing that makes a actor so good on screen is a sense of realism and a sense of that they're not acting.
Right.
And a lot of these people feel like they're acting. And so like I can appreciate on a level that like he's trying to go real with it,
Yeah.
but not to the point where it sacrifices my ability
The
to see them as
quality.
like, the quality of
Yeah.
like your acting. But there's still really funny situations and scenarios, especially in the second season. I really enjoyed the first little 2 episodes, which are like based in Italy.
Yeah.
And I've really enjoyed the way that that's gone. And it does have clever situations and scenarios, and they kind of play off of a few kind of famous. In the first 2 episodes, I believe they play off a couple famous Italian sort of art films. The Bike Thief and I forget the other one, but they play off a couple ones, and so it's kind of creative and it's fun in that regard. And I like it because of that. I like it because of the dialogue, but I really am having a hard time getting through just the difficulty with the acting.
Bummer.
I do enjoy the topics that he kind of goes into, and I feel like he does also, although you can tell he's got an opinion that goes in one direction with most of the like social commentary type stuff, it never feels like he's beating you over the head with it, and it
Okay.
never feels like he's just, it feels like it comes up in normal everyday conversation and topic. It doesn't feel like they're like, oh, well, now let's spend 5 minutes talking about this
Right. Yeah.
topic because we need to for script reasons. It's like, okay, well, they're in a normal conversation and they're talking about things and they have these views, and so those views would come out at different times. And so I'm enjoying it for that level. I think the weird thing about it is I just don't understand why I think it's getting as high of a rating as it is, because it really is hard for me
Right.
at
to
times.
look past some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Sure.
I get why he did it. But like that's the thing is like just because you have a good idea in your head and there's a good reason behind it doesn't mean it always translates well.
Right.
That's part of art is taking your concepts and ideas and making them translate well. So I don't know.
Okay.
I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep watching it. I'm through 4 episodes now.
Rate the series overall so far.
It's hard to say.
Okay.
I would give it like a B-, kind of low.
Okay. But it's still relatively positive. Like it's on the positive side. Okay.
Yeah, it's still on the positive side. I don't think it's non-worthwhile. It's just really hard for me at times to get past some of the acting.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But there's definitely moments where I'm laughing and kind of giggling at it and enjoying different things. So there you go, Matt.
Cool.
Awesome. So any other thoughts?
No, I was curious about it. So I guess it's doing well. Netflix is still giving them money to make a show. So
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. So Awesome. Then with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up on the podcast. Some good ways, again, to get connected here at the end. You've got the website, which is realreviewmedia.com. You can get signed up there on the newsletter and just check out what we got going on. Then in addition to that, you've got facebook.com/realreviewmedia. You've got Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Real Review Media. And as always, we'd love to talk to you and hear your thoughts and perspectives on different things.
Yep.
Definitely love to hear from you with our email address, which is realreviewmedia@gmail.com. So,
Bam.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Well then, if there's nothing else, it's been real.
It's been real.